Arguably, the biggest disappointment for the 49ers draft was the lack of a pickup at the tackle position. Now, ideally, you pick up a right tackle who could potentially someday maybe even move into left tackle when Trent Williams retires, or stay at right tackle, but then at least you have one side locked down as you're looking for your replacement. It gives you some flexibility in the future. Now, I can't tell you that we found that, but I do think we have reason to be positive going into the new season with this bolstered offensive line. If you're new here, I'm Nate, covering all things San Francisco sports, and it really helps me out if you hit that subscribe button. Well, the good news is this: there are options out there. Let's go through some of the possibilities put out there by Kyle Madson, and then later in the video, some free agent options open to the Niners as well. So Kyle Madson put this article out on Niners Wire. Let's hop in there. ESPN laid out the biggest, I don't know if you guys saw this. Yeah, it's brutal. ESPN laid out the biggest roster role for each NFL team and correctly hit the right tackle position for San Francisco. There's not much of an argument to be made otherwise, so instead, let's see how they might go about filling that hole with the current assets on their roster. The first option is getting improvement from McKivitz. This isn't out of the question. Right tackle is his natural position, but he spent most of the first 3 NFL seasons playing guard or left tackle. Last year was his first chance to start and play right tackle full time. Now, of course, you can argue that in the draft, the 49ers seem somewhat comfortable with McKivitz, or they have another plan up their sleeve because they didn't go out there and pick up a right tackle. There must be some internal belief that McKivitz could be better next year. There's also a chance that teams like its internal depth in a competition setting. Veteran Brandon Parker in free agency has experience at right tackle. John Feliciano has played some tackle in his career. Spencer Burford played tackle in college. So, yeah, there are some guys that could be put in that position. I'm not sure what you think about all of them. Offensive line is definitely not my particular strength when it comes to commentating on football. But I like that there are options, all right? I'll just say that. Another route they could go would be giving third-round pick Dominic Puni a shot there. He played a lot of tackle, granted left tackle, but he's played across all 4. So he's seen as a guy that's probably going to be a guard, but can play tackle. Played a lot of tackle in college, so maybe there's a shot that they put him in there at right tackle. I don't think that's what they're going to do. Honestly, I think they're going to put him at right guard, if anything. But we'll see. Who knows? We'll see what happens. It should be interesting, and I do love that he has all of the tools outside of some of the style maybe that you would expect at like a tackle position. He does have a lot of the tools to compete. Finally, the club could look externally, which brings us to another article that I thought was pretty interesting over at Niners Nation, which was 4 free agents that the 49ers should consider signing ahead of training camp. And they started off actually talking about defensive players. So I just want to give a little, Kyle Posey shout out here to some of the names that are on that list. Not nobodies in the NFL. Justin Simmons especially. I live in Denver, so I hear that name on Sports Talk Radio all the time. That would be a huge pickup at safety. Granted, I'm not sure. I can see a way it makes sense, actually. I'm not going to say it doesn't make sense. It definitely depends on what your confidence in Hufanga is, though, and if he's going to return really well. I think picking up Malik Mustafa is obvious that they want depth at that position so that if Hufanga gets injured, like last year, it kind of felt like, who's the guy? Who's the actual stylistically the same position player? So moving on, though, there is this idea of adding Dalton Reisner or Greg Van Roten. So Dominic Pudi can be a day 1 starter at right guard for the 49ers as a 3rd-round draft pick out of Kansas, but they could still stand to improve on the opposite side. Aaron Banks earned just a 50.2 PFF pass blocking grade last season and struggled in the Super Bowl loss to Kansas City Chiefs. This is a spot where Dalton Reisner or Greg Van Roten could compete for a starting job. I'll admit, I have hated the Raiders with a vengeance my entire life. I even my father somehow, I don't know how this happened, but he became a Raiders fan because of the woman he was with, and it hurts. It hurts. It really hurts. So I can't really give a whole lot of love to anybody coming out of Vegas. But I doubt the 49ers are looking at the PFF grade from a season ago to determine whether or not they're going to replace the former second-round pick. Reisner, another former second-round pick, did not allow a sack last year and only had 2 penalties. I want to say that was in he was the Vikings last year, right? In over 700 snaps. But he's been on the injury report every season and began 2023 on the injury reserve due to an elbow injury. That's fair concern. I think Posey's point was really more so that they should be looking at Simmons and Diggs as a safety backup kind of option. But what I think is interesting about this is the amount of possibilities with the offensive line. And I do think part of that comes from the moves that have taken place in both the draft and the undrafted free agent options in the free agency. So I think there are a lot of guys there who are going to be vying for a spot. I think everybody and their mom knows that it's a spot that the 49ers are looking to improve at this season. So the competition is going to be heavy. And I believe, although I think a lot of the names are going to be very similar, I do think there's going to be improvement this season. I am an eternal optimist, and I know that about myself, and so it's okay. Feel free to let me know you feel differently in the comments. It won't hurt my feelings, but I do believe that there's going to be improvement here. I think offensive lines are very, very interesting. It's one of the most interesting positions in football. I living in Denver, watched it here a lot of years with the Denver Broncos. Saw that they've struggled with that for, it feels eternal, the amount that they have struggled at that position. And you look at teams, and when they have time, those players can build and build and build. Sometimes you just get the right guy in and it fixes the problem, but sometimes you got to build those guys. So even if a lot of the same names are standing on that same offensive line, there's only improvement that can come if everybody's putting in best effort and continuing to grow together as a team with new competition at those positions. I do think Pooney, I'm totally biased. I know that I am, but I feel like Pooney is going to be a starter. Maybe not the beginning of the season, but I think he's going to be a starter on this offensive line at some point this season. He's going to be a starter. So we'll see what happens. I don't know, man. Let me know what you think, though, in the comments. I'd be interested if you feel as optimistic as I do. I have a feeling you don't. I have a feeling I'm kind of unique in this way. But let me know if you're looking through red and gold glasses like I am at this situation and seeing a positive outlook. Yes, we would have all loved to get a right tackle or a tackle, any offensive tackle would have been great in the draft. But this is what we're looking at, and I still feel pretty positive about the opportunities there. If it were me, I'd sign Dalton Reisner on the kind of opportunity, free agent opportunity that kind of puts him as a practice squad guy, but maybe just adds to that pressure. His personality and his the character he brings to the dressing room is going to be would be incredibly massive and super helpful, and he's a stud player when he's healthy. Not perfect by any stretch of the means, but you need guys in there that just aren't drawing a lot of injury or a lot of penalties. You need guys in there that are stout and solid and have experience, and he is one of those guys. So, look, that's just my take. Let me know what you think in the comments. I look forward to reading them and joining you in the conversation. As always, I am optimistic, faithful. What a time to be alive.